The object of Taxi Chronicles is to allow real riders with real stories share their experience and enhance your life. So sit back and enjoy the journey. Morning. Yes, we're back with another episode, another rider. Today we are honoured to have a guy from all the way across the pond. I don't know his name yet, but he looks like he's an entrepreneur, let's just put it that way. And he's got an interesting story. It involves crypto, it involves football, teams and much more. So he's going to share his experience with us and hopefully we can learn a lot. So nice to have you here today, my friend.
Thank you. It's good to be here. I am from near Los Angeles in California, so the other side of the states over there. When we're headed to the airport, I got an 11-hour flight ahead of me. But my name's Preston Johnson, and this is pretty cool. You said you've done over 900 episodes. I've never heard of anyone doing a podcast out of their taxi or Uber or anything, so keep it up.
Okay, thanks a lot. So tell us a bit about who you were at school. What kind of person were you?
At school, so my background actually in school is in sports psychology.
Okay.
So I studied psychology, worked with athletes and coaches, started my PhD, and decided during that, because my actual, skill set was actually in math and analytics, I ended up building models to bet on sports in America and had some success. I didn't finish my PhD. I left school and started betting on sports. I did that for about 12 years, and the last few years I was a TV analyst for ESPN, actually breaking down games and analytics and that type of thing. So, yeah. So
you delved into all of that. What was that career like, and why did you decide not to finish the PhD as well?
So in America, I'm not sure how university works here. I did about 4 years, my undergraduate degree, which was in psychology, and then 2 years to get a master's degree in sports psychology. And then I did a semester my PhD, and I just didn't want to do more school if I didn't have to be completely honest. So I was doing okay on the betting front and just decided to call it a day. On the schooling front, I figured I could always go back if I needed to later, and luckily I didn't have to. So.
There's a film in America, it's a white guy, he's a bit fattish, but he's lost a lot of weight. He's really funny. I like him. He's in... What films he's in? He did this film. I'm trying to remember what films he's in. My mind's just...
I think I know where you're going. Let's see if I'm right. Are you talking about the baseball movie with analytics?
Yeah.
Jonah Hill.
Yeah.
Jonah Hill. Yeah.
He's in like those American Pie movies kind of things as well.
Yeah.
So I'm getting a vision of him playing you. kind of thing.
That could work. That works.
Yeah, because you're good at betting in the sense of understanding the players. How do you develop that kind of skill?
Ooh. So there's some people that are very model based, where they're able to build algorithms and models and put out. So what I essentially did was put projections for each, if it was American football or the NBA or baseball in America. I have my own projections of where I think a betting line should be, and I compare it to the market number and the market price. And if there's a big enough discrepancy, I would bet against it, essentially trusting my data relative to the market. And over time, if they're 1 to 2% edges, 3% edges, sometimes those add up, and that it's kind of similar to people that are into poker or are familiar with poker, where you just grind and play poker tables all year. If you're a professional, you just know that there's ups and downs, but over time you're a profitable player. And I did that, and then just turned it into a media career when America started legalizing sports betting in multiple states. Before, it was basically just Las Vegas, Nevada, and that was it. And I actually lived in Vegas for 6 years. But then they started opening it up, and ESPN's like, hey, we're going to launch a new show. You want to talk to us? And I was kind of on the younger side.
ESPN found you?
Yeah, they reached out the day before they were arriving in Vegas to interview 12 people. They're like, we just keep hearing about you. Can we talk to you? And so I interviewed with them the next day, and then a week later they said, hey, we really liked you. You want to help us launch this show? So I was really lucky, but then I got to do TV and meet a lot of cool people at ESPN. And yeah, but then when I finished there, I left actually last year to start a separate business in crypto and NFTs that had a lot of success. And so then I know you were asking right when I jumped in what I do, why I'm looking at buying football clubs in and around London, but we actually bought one a few months ago. So
before we jump into the football, let's going back to because you've got a very interesting story.
Okay.
With I'm amazed. Well, not amazed. I think that's such a compliment that they've actually sought you out, ESPN, and they found you and they said, we want your expertise. So I'm very impressed with that alone. You spoke about algorithms. You said you formulate an algorithm, but it's based on your information that you gather. So you see
a lot of data, and exactly.
Them. How do you retrieve that data, and what is it you're looking for exactly?
Sure. So, I mean, a lot of the data is public. A lot of it you have to pay for. It's a matter of, I think, really it's like solving a puzzle. What's the data that's underappreciated in the market? What's the data that maybe is old now and everyone's caught up to, and you're trying to always find just little edges or advantages, and it's constantly kind of an evolving process. But that on top of just being in the right networks with other bettors and hearing about injuries or something before, like there's all these little things that add up to a process that can give you an edge. So that's ultimately how I would look at it, to give people that maybe if they're listening and they're American and familiar with college American football in America, they for example, there's some metrics for American football called like EPA or success rate that were not utilized heavily until the last few years that are pretty, especially success rate in college football was really predictive, and people didn't really even look at it for 5 to 7 years. And so that's something that if you were ahead and able to catch the success rate was extremely predictive relative to the market, then you would be betting those discrepancies. Like there's just items that you can utilize to better your performance, so to speak. Yeah.
So you really have to build relationships with people.
Yeah, that's part of it for sure too. Yeah.
So you've got to be a good communicator. And when you were in college or university, as we see it, you knew all the players of that university. That kind of
thing. Like in America, for example, for college American football, it was 130 plus schools or universities, and so you'd have to know 55 to 60 players on each one, and recruiting, which is
how do you, so you
well that's why
one team.
Well, that's why you can automate a lot of it with a model, which is very helpful. And then it's a lot of reading and gathering information on top of it. But if you're able to kind of have a substantial base and foundation that's automated, it gives you a really good opportunity, at least to have a baseline and go from there.
Did you envision that it's going to grow to something what it was today?
Oh no! Even a year and a half ago, before all of the NFTs went crazy, I never would have guessed that I'd be in this Uber with you talking about we'll get into some of the other stuff. But I've been living back and forth between. I'm actually from Orange County, so I live there near Los Angeles, and then I live here about half the year as well. So I'm just back and forth pretty frequently.
Okay. Yes. What have you learned from your whole experience of setting up the algorithms and just entering into this sports-based betting system that you wish you knew when you'd started?
So prior to that, I played poker. And so I actually learned a lot from playing poker that was very similar to sports betting, where you need to have an allotted bankroll and you have to manage it correctly, and there's a process to it all, and you can't let a bad week or even a bad month really deteriorated your mental health or emotional ability to bet within your means and that type of stuff. There's a real psychology element to gambling, and so that was, I think, really important that I studied psychology. I played poker and I was grinding poker for a while, and then when I started betting and I realized I could actually do pretty well in certain aspects, I was kind of at least mentally tough enough, I think, to withstand bad weeks or months, but knew that in the long haul it'd be okay. It's kind of we call it trusting the process. And so if you're able to trust that process, it goes a long way. And then related to whether it was crypto or NFTs or running a football club, you have to trust your process. You can't react and overreact to small sample sizes. Usually data or math tells the truth. And so that's kind of, I think, the main piece that I've taken away and still utilize in a lot of facets of my life.
Were your parents into betting or?
No, I grew up really religious. I didn't tell my parents for a while that I was actually betting. I think I haven't told that story much on podcasts before, actually, but
okay. This could be an edited version.
No, you can leave it in now. They know now. But when I was going to go on ESPN, they thought I did fantasy sports. I told them that for a few years but I was really just like betting. And
Are
so
you-
that was like the nicer way to tell them. And then when I was going to be on TV every day, I had to just kind of break it. And they were extremely supportive, and so I misjudged them incorrectly. And I wish I had told them earlier, because they were really supportive. And from a conservative religious background, gambling would have been a big no-no. But they got it, they understood it, and they've had my back ever since. So that was my fault for not saying anything sooner to them. But it was kind of a funny dynamic there.
So you learned something from that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. So Orange County, is that like the Bible Belt?
No, Bible Belt's like Texas in the South and in the States. So Orange County is just like some beach towns south of Los Angeles, like Newport Beach, Laguna Beach, Dana Point, San Clemente. There's some, and Irvine, California, or Anaheim, where Disneyland is. Those are a little inland, but yeah, that's kind of the Orange County area.
So what age did you start all of this?
What age?
Yeah.
I was 22. It's really started. I was betting for fun, or I say betting without an edge, when Black Friday happened in America. Which, for those that don't know, Black Friday is when the government disallowed us from playing poker online, and so there were a lot of people that I knew in my poker network that had to move out of the country to go play in Canada or in Europe. And I was in school, so I didn't want to necessarily dedicate my life to poker, so I stayed in school, finished university and everything. But in the midst of that, I had this poker money, and I was like, well, what do I do with it now? And I started betting on sports, and then was able to kind of gain acumen and build something there.
So the government just woke up one morning like, no poker on the line.
Yeah, everyone woke up and you couldn't log in anymore, and there was a governmental stamp that said you're no longer. They wanted to try to. One, there was I guess a lot of kind of illegal stuff happening, and people in America shouldn't have been playing on certain sites. They were, and they had to just crack down. And I think they also wanted to capitalize on all the revenue. It was a big boom at the time, and so now there's a few sites in America you can play online.
Okay.
But, yeah.
But it's nothing compared to the rest of the world then.
Correct. Like Poker Stars, Full Tilt, those were massive back in the day as two platforms. Party Poker, and you could no longer play on those sites for years. You still can't, actually. But
really? So they have to give on to the piper.
Mm-hmm.
Give on to okay, that's good. Well, I'm just taking in your story.
That's why you have to do this in real time.
Yeah, of course. There's no research in this.
You don't get to plan or outline.
No,
I've done interviews before too, and it's here's an outline of what we're going to do. You're just doing it on the fly.
Yeah.
So
what do you think of London? So you come here, you've invested in London.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of London?
I actually really love it, and the more I come back, the more I wish because I have 3 kids, a wife. I wish they could come out and visit. They haven't yet because we just had a young baby, and we don't want to fly for 10 to 11 hours with a young
I understand.
baby yet. But since about January, I've been making regular trips, and the city's way bigger than you think. It just keeps going all directions. I have a flat near central London, near King's Cross and St. Pancras.
Okay.
And then the club that we bought is called Crawley Town Football Club, which is just south, and so it's about a 45-minute train ride from St. Pancras, and so that's why we're located there. But London's amazing. There's just so much to do. The people, it's just really diverse and inclusive, and I've actually appreciated quite a bit more than I had anticipated initially.
What was your expectations of before you first come to London, what it would be like to what it turns out to be like?
Let's see. It's more expensive than I even thought. So I'm being completely honest. That's probably the biggest takeaway for me. Inflation combined with just living in London, just it's pretty every time I need an Uber or a train or to go get food out, plus I'm paying in dollars, so that's there's a 22% tax because of the exchange rate. So it's just I was like, man, it's an expensive city to live in, but it's kind of you pay for what you get though. So I'm not gonna. I live in an expensive area in America too, so it's part of life. But I was actually surprised how much more expensive it was than I was expecting, or even relative to say when I go to Crawley, it's just way cheaper in Crawley than London. So that's actually the one thing that stood out the most. But as a whole, I'm not sure I really had made any expectations, to be honest. I just kind of wanted to go into it and learn about the area and the people. And I'd visited 2 other times just with family, when I was younger, just for a vacation or a holiday. But yeah, I didn't really come in with much other than I'm like, geez, how do people survive out here? It's tough. Yeah.
Well, we got a good social system. It's not as good as the Germans and French, but it's a good social system where you never hit total rock bottom. What do you know your heritage back to Europe? Are you English?
I'm a mix of I don't know. It's like 8 different. It's some English, some German, and some Swedish. Is like I think Swedish is the main one actually.
Your surname is
Johnson.
That'll be English.
It's
you know why England king gave surnames to the public, to the population or the peasants at the time, based on tax.
Okay.
So depending what you did, if you were called Fisher because you're fisherman, Smith, blacksmith, thatcher for a roof, so that indicates how much you should get taxed, and that's where you can always tell when an English person,
depending on the name. Yeah.
Surname,
Okay.
In that respect.
Nice.
Yeah. So you went into NFTs and crypto. Explain that for us first, because there's going to be people in the audience who heard about NFTs but don't really understand it.
Yep, totally. So I'll say first and foremost, when you're in the betting industry, what was nice about crypto is it's a really convenient way to transfer money across the world instantly without having to like send cash or send a bank wire. And so I was already like into crypto since I think it was 2012.
Early days. Yeah,
so I was able to, one, it was obviously a good time because it was really cheap back then, but the main point being that I was just using it as an actual, it had the utility for me, and so I was already familiar with it. And then in about 2017 I actually really developed a belief in it and then heavily invested in it. The price had risen obviously by then some, but I had always kept an eye just on everything. There's all these other blockchains and different crypto coins, this and that, and I really was only just interested in Bitcoin and Ethereum. And then a lot of the NFT stuff in 2020 into 2021 was really blowing up, and it was a lot of the utility of the Ethereum blockchain and what we can build on it, and from the art standpoint and collectability and culture of digital art and what people were doing, and the amount of creative freedom is like a new movement that really intrigued me. So I started looking into it, and then it was in February that my contract with ESPN was winding down, and they offered me another one. I was just like, actually, I'm going to go do something else. I need to prioritize my flexibility because there's this huge opportunity in the NFT space. This is at the start of 2021. And so I left after my contract, and in March I founded a company called Pixel Vault with the Punk's Comic Project, which people can Google. You can actually Google my name. I'll pub your podcast too. Like, I have a decent following on Twitter, so hopefully you get some new followers yourself. But yeah, that project had some success. I won't get into like the technicalities or details of it all, but it kind of got me into this whole kind of NFT/crypto network, where then come October that year, someone who knew me from what I did prior, we had mutual friends. He's the co-chairman of the club with me. His name is Eben Smith. He's like, hey, there's all of these digital communities and businesses being formed online, but really it's just a speculation game. There's these JPEG pictures of like monkeys and giraffes and like lions and like what is it really in the end? They say you might have a video game one day, but he's like, what if we did this but with a sports team, and we utilized the blockchain technology to bring an international community to tell a story about a real like professional club. And so we chose a club in League 2 to be that club called Crawley Town, and our idea is that we can have a remote fan. If you have an internet connection, like, this is your team now. And so we brought, like, for example, Liverpool, they tried to sell NFTs a few months ago. They tried to sell 175,000 NFTs to their own fans, and 99.9% of Liverpool fans don't care about NFTs, and they only sold about 9,700, I think. It was a total bomb. Like, they could not. Everyone said, "Oh, look what you guys did. It's a total cash grab," right? It wasn't genuine. And everyone said, how is Crawley Town FC in League 2, which is 4th division, after Premier League Championship, League 1? You're in League 2. How are they going to sell NFTs if Liverpool couldn't? And we did it because it was the reverse. We weren't putting NFTs on our own fans. We were taking a professional team and club and bringing it to NFT fans. And so we ended up selling more NFTs than Liverpool did at 8 times the price. And Crawley Town instantly sold 11 times more kits or shirts than they did all last season before the season started, because it was represented in a digital NFT form. And so it's been really interesting to see some of the progress there, and we can get into more of the details if you'd like. But that was kind of our whole thesis, was if we can we brought, I think there's 5,500 new fans online, and before they only had 727 season ticket holders last year. So it's like increasing the audience is massive, because in England there's another club 5 miles away. It's really hard to get new fans. There's another club over there. There's another club over there. So you can't sustain and win because you lose money every year anyway. And we were like, well, if we can actually become profitable and bring in new fans and monetize them correctly, then we actually could have a sustainable chance of getting promoted and moving up the ranks.
Clubs are like religion.
Oh, totally.
If your father supported Chelsea, let's say, you support Chelsea, even if you live in Liverpool now.
Yep, and to your point, you're dead on. I think Crawley itself was formed in like the 1950s and 60s from a group from London that just needed to go live somewhere. They just migrated south about 20 miles, and so most of them are fans of all of the clubs, the Premier League clubs or Championship League clubs around London, because that's their grandparents rooted for those clubs, and then their parents rooted for those clubs. And so Crawley doesn't have that many fans, despite having a big population and being so close to London. But that means there's also an opportunity.
Yeah, there's a saying, I will fight for my club but not for my country.
Interesting. Yeah.
And I've heard that.
I kind of believe it after being in the business for a few months.
I've heard that from some serious fans, man.
Yeah.
I had one fan from East London who supports West Ham, and he refuses to go to South London.
Really?
Yeah, he
Wow.
works in the scaffold business, and he said, I never go. If my boss tells me South London, I'm not going.
That's funny. That's good.
That's how dedicated
Yeah.
he is to East London. He said, I might go North London.
Not
No,
going
East
south.
East London's my home, and that's where I stick. I'm not doing it. And he's old as well.
Yeah.
He's not a young guy. He's old, so yeah, there's a real religion in that.
Dedication. Yeah.
In that sense. So an NFT is a non-fungible
Token. Yeah.
So how would you explain that?
Sure. So in our sense, what we're doing, we basically explain it as a virtual season ticket. So the NFT itself, it gives you access to a shirt, a scarf, a hat, and then it also gives you, it's like a token gated access to basically unprecedented perks and inside looks with the club. So we stream for NFT holders sessions of training where they can watch the training sessions live or after, or they're recorded. You can do like actual breakdowns of oppositions with the head manager, the coach, Kevin Betsy. We've tried a few other things with like a secondary stream with commentary from some comedians that are watching during the game. And then the biggest thing we did, which Sky Sports, I was just on Sky Sports yesterday actually, they did a whole piece about this, but we let season ticket holders and NFT holders vote on where we were going to put our funds in the transfer window. So we wanted to sign one more quality footballer. We said, what position group do you guys think we need most? Attacker, midfielder, defender, or goalkeeper? And they voted for midfielder. And then so we went back to our operations team and analysts and the manager, and we ended up signing, his name's Brandon Mason, as a midfielder. And that was really interesting, and that's why the Sky Sports stuff they were really intrigued, because the fans actually dictated the type of player we were going to bring in, and they had a say.
They feel like they're really part of the thing now.
Exactly.
They're like, yeah. And if you're playing rubbish, we're going to vote.
Yeah.
As fans, we got our NFTs. And another fan will go, I haven't got NFTs, I want to vote.
Yeah.
Give me, how much NFT?
Yeah, so if you have a season ticket, then you had a vote, or if you have an NFT, you had a vote, and
But
so that's how we combine it.
That's actually quite fair. It's actually sensible in business. Because if you incorporate somebody into the system, they're
emotionally invested already, but now they're like extra motivated
Yeah.
to see it work. And we've had a few other items we've considered putting to a vote or a fan decision. Like, for example, here's one we didn't end up doing, but it was a consideration. Currently, Crawley Town doesn't train on a grass pitch. It's just 4G. And grass pitch would be preferable because they play on grass every Saturday. It would cost us to do 2 pitches at another site and maintain them over the course of the year and add a sprinkler irrigation system and everything. It was about £230,000. And we almost went to the fans and said, would you rather have grass pitches for the club or spend the £230,000 on more players? And we asked Kevin Betsy, the head manager, and his quote was something to the likes of, well, if we don't have players, we might as well pack up and go home anyway. So he made it clear he wanted to use it on the playing budget and the wages. and, as opposed to grass. So we haven't done grass pitches yet, but that was another like big picture item where we were going to consider going to the fans and let them decide. So yeah, it just gets them more involved and engaged, which is what we kind of need to do though if you're watching remotely, right? If you're local, you can go to the games, everyone's talking about it. But if you're watching from America or from other countries in Europe, you need to have a reason to care, and that's the intent.
So why Crawley? Why did you buy Crawley?
Sorry, I was just taking a drink.
All right,
So there were two clubs we were actually really interested in, and there's actually news. If you look, people can Google it. In December, we actually decided we were far in discussions with Bradford City, and it fell apart. Their owner got spooked once the crypto bros started taking over, and he saw the fans were scared that we were coming in. It was a lot of skepticism. This was in December, so you can Google it after. You'll probably be interested. So it fell through. We didn't end up getting them, but our second choice the whole time, and honestly, for some people in our ownership group, was the first choice. I'm not just saying that to be nice to Crawley. They always know I'm open and honest and transparent about everything. There was a very, very big decision on, is it Bradford or Crawley? Bradford just has a huge stadium, and they have a club and way more fans, but they're also in Bradford. They're not near London. And Crawley, when we actually visited, I think the thing that stood out the most to me, one from the football side and then one from like the community side. I'll start with the football side. You referenced it a little bit already, but there's so much talent in London and South London, and right now none of that talent goes to Crawley, despite Crawley being 114,000 person population and other towns and cities around it. They all go to Brighton, Crystal Palace, or any of the other London Premier League clubs to play in the academy. And so there's an opportunity from a business perspective to actually build an academy, do things the right way, and attract talent. So that's one. And the proximity to London obviously is a big factor there. And then the second part was we actually went there and met with the staff and just kind of got to know the town. They're the smallest club in EFL, in all of the EFL. But it's like a big underdog story, but the staff, it's a really tight-knit family vibe that we appreciated, and we knew like no matter what, they're going to bleed for the Red Devils, for Crawley Town Football Club, and that felt like it was the right decision, and so we ended up talking with them and got it. It took about 3.5-4 months before we officially acquired the club in April, but that was that's where we landed.
So you had them for April, so it's 4 months.
Yeah, I think it was April 7th was the day. Yep.
Okay. That's good. Why soccer team? Because obviously you've got NFLs, you've got the ice hockey league.
Yeah, I can tell you. There's one main thing that you guys will appreciate. Promotion relegation system is brilliant. We don't have it in America. For one, if we wanted to buy an NBA team or an American football team or hockey or whatever, you need a lot of money. We didn't have billions of dollars, so that was the start. Is we needed to find a smaller club, like a Division 2 or 3 or 4 club. But in America, if you're getting a lower league NBA or hockey or baseball team, minor league baseball team, even if you win, there's no actual pathway to the biggest trophy, right, or the championship, because you don't move up. There's no promotion relegation. Here, you can take any club you want, and in theory, there's a chance to tell a dream story, and hold the trophy at the end of the year. So that made it obvious to do English football right out of the gate, and then League Two was more or less the cheapest option to, at the stakes that matter within the system. Once you go below League Two, it's the National League. It's really hard to get out of. There's a lot more clubs, and you're not on like streaming or on TV very often. And so we kind of were like, this is our minimum viable product, so to speak, is League Two to make this bet. And so that's where we decided.
So football being the most widely played sport in the world, I believe. I'm not a football fan, so I'll just say I believe. You've strategically put yourself in a position where you could become a premier international.
Boom. So our actual tagline for the ownership group, it's called WAGME United, and the tagline is the Internet's team. And our entire scope is that, like, if you have an internet connection and you want to root for a team and be a part of like crypto's team, Crawley Town is that club, and join us, like tell the story with us, and help us build something really special. So that's exactly right. We basically are trying to be that international team that anyone can be a part of from anywhere in the world.
You've really thought about this in deep, because what I'm looking at is that you've acknowledged that there's a historical thing when it comes to teams, and therefore
126-year history and heritage at Crawley, so that's
yeah. But to get new team players, if you go to the crypto people and the NFT people, you can do that. You can manage to get that because it's an online team. Because people will support. They've got their national team, and then they've got their international teams.
Yeah, I think one extra thing to add on that note is that a big portion of the NFT crowd and audience of the last year and a half that's really exploded is American, and in America, football or soccer, it's not very popular. Like, I didn't grow up with a soccer team. I never rooted for one. So even if I wasn't a part of this project myself and I heard about it, I'd be like, oh, this is really cool. Crypto's doing a team. I can root for them. I've never had a team before. Yeah, let me jump on board. And so I think that was part of the selling point, in a sense, was that there's a lot of Americans that don't have a football club they root for and that they're attached to. And so this can be their club, in a sense.
You spoke about, I believe, Liverpool doing the NFT route. Have they looked at what you're doing or any other teams and approached you to say, can you help us? Or
yeah, I can't say.
Can we copy?
I can't say, but there was a Premier League club that called us 2 days after our NFT drop or NFT sale. And that's all I can really say, but it was kind of fun to see them fanboying over how we did it. And they kind of said, this is like the model direction that, we haven't done our own thing yet. We'd love to learn and partner with you guys in some form or fashion. And so it's good to hear that from them. And
what did you say?
We said, look, this is our strategy, and we're going to build some tech this season behind the scenes that we think can be, really useful for a lot of clubs, a lot of teams. And, most of them don't actually have a huge presence in Web3, but that's what makes not only myself but our entire group unique, is it's a lot of the biggest names and business minds and influencers from crypto or Web3 or NFTs all in one. And so we're probably one of the more trusted sources or pockets of people if you're going to do anything related to NFTs. And so, we told them, like, let's stay in touch. Like, we're going to try to do something pretty crazy here, and we'll talk again soon. So that's how we left it. But it was encouraging we also had a separate team in America reach out as well that runs a professional team over there.
A soccer team as well?
No, different sport.
Or NBA or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm actually salivating of how entrepreneurial ahead of the time you are, because you're just.
I hope so.
You're just.
I mean, that's
leaps and
part of it's crazy
ahead.
when you come from like sports betting or poker. Like you cannot be risk averse and like make plays or bets like this, right? Like, this is so outlandish in a sense, and we hear it in the media. Like, people have been giving us a hard time online. Some people like respect everything we're doing and say this could be the future of football, but really it's you have to have like a pretty hard head and unafraid of like failing. And there's like definitely a chance we fail, right? Like, we could be totally wrong, but if we're right, then we have a real opportunity. So that's kind of in essence our.
But Preston, what I look at here, sorry to interrupt there. What I look at here is this: you're not affecting the game of football. What you're doing, you're just finding a way to get more people interested who may not be necessarily interested, and pushing forward in general.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? You're marketing it and you're making people involved. That idea of fans having to say about how to deal with the finance. I'll tell you one thing. If Liverpool could have had them they dropped the ball on that one.
They should have, right?
Imagine that. 500 million people have support Liverpool.
You know what's another interesting stat for people that are familiar with football? When we were doing some research, do you know how many clubs in all of the UK make more money internationally than locally?
Yeah, it's probably a lot, because Liverpool, Manchester all supported, like, more people support them in China than they do in thing. And I know a lot of people support teams in Africa.
And like Arsenal
Africa.
and So do you know how many though?
No.
So it's only 6.
Really?
So it's like the big 6. You could name them if you thought about it. And so what's interesting is that if you're able to, in theory, even after we did our NFT sale, we're actually number 7 now. We're in League 2, but the idea is there that if you have an international interest and you monetize it correctly and then spend efficiently on coaching staff and player wages and sports science and analytics and the community and infrastructure, we implemented a B team this year, which they hadn't had previously, and everything like.
What's a B team?
Like a second squad, like sort of like like Brentford did it. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Brentford. They're in the Premier League
so
now.
their team they're playing, and
They're like it's like a youth development team.
Yeah,
but also if you have injuries or people get
just
hurt, you
slot them
can
in.
bring them up and down. But they play friendlies throughout the season with other clubs, so they get experience in appearances, and it's a more cost efficient way of running an academy essentially without having to.
Also, they want to be there. They want to get to that next stage.
Yeah, exactly. They're trying to earn their spot with the first team, so it's a good little setup we have. But all of those things are only possible because we brought in this extra revenue that never existed in Crawley before, and is actually more than they make locally. And so of those, you have those 6, and then you have Crawley Town. And the point is, though, is like if we can do it correctly and keep building on it, that international audience goes a long way. And there's a reason those 6 teams are the ones spending the most money on players and always in the news and are always in the Premier League or near the top of the table, because over time, money equals winning. There's variance season to season, but there's like an actual direct correlation in all sports, all leagues, that money equals winning. And so that's the hope, that's the interest there.
Okay, yes. I'm really blown away. I'm just thinking of my friend who's a football fan, average football fan. He'd love to hear this interview.
Tell him to listen. Yeah. There's a chance that if he's a big football fan, there's a chance he's heard of us already. We've been in a lot of news stories and stuff.
Okay.
And there's a chance he's already heard.
Good. So you live here and you live in America.
Yeah.
What's the future hold for you?
So here's another thing. I know we got about 10 more minutes before we're at the airport. Yeah. So one thing that my co-founder Eben and I did when we acquired the club, we told people that if we're not, it's another thing with involving the fans and the community. But we said if we're not promoted in the first 2 seasons, they can vote us out if they want. And if they're not like appreciative of our strategy and our what we're doing and our goals, the fans will be able to vote someone else in to help run the club. And we'll take proposals from other people in our ownership group or local people that want to maybe come on and run it. We're hoping that it's just us, even if we're not promoted, but that vote will happen. And so the whole reason for that is because there's no accountability for owners in sport in any country, in any league. It's especially at League 2, League 1, you have owners that come in, they buy clubs and like, hey, we're going to be in the Championship or the Premier League in 5 years, and they hype it up for all the fans, but there's no downside. There's no accountability.
Like politics.
And they're just rich. They're going to own the club anyway, no matter what. Yeah. And usually the scapegoat is the manager or the general manager or the head coach or whatever. Like those people get sacked, right? It's not the owners. And one example, Eben's a big New York Knicks fan, the NBA, and James Dolan is the owner, and it's been over 30 years. The Knicks have just been run. They're the franchise that's worth the most or second most, depending on if you're a Lakers person or a Knicks person, in the market in New York City where you should be dominating, and they just have not done anything for over 30 years. It's mediocrity for 30 years. And it's like, if we get rid of James, then, things could change, but he's rich. He owns the Knicks. He's not going to sell. And so nothing really changes. And so the idea behind it is that we actually have to walk the walk, and like we say these things, but actually perform and get it done. And if we don't, the fans should be able to say, hey,
it's time for you to go.
Let's get some other people in, and thanks but no thanks. And so that puts a lot of pressure on us, but I think it's really unique because I've really never heard of that before in sport too. So that's another thing where we need to be focused in the next 2 years. So I guess to answer your question, we're all in on getting Crawley Town promoted and winning, and then going from there after that.
That's good. So you're forever going to be just Crawley Town unless you get voted out. Can you own more than one team, or is that to be
not a men's team, not another men's team in the EFL or Premier League? You can in a different country. We could own another team in a different sport down the road. Our hope and our idea is that WAGMI United can be a group or a brand that is similar to, say, like Red Bull. It's like the Red Bull of crypto, where they have their brand in a few different sports and leagues across the world. But if we're not right and do it first correctly with Crawley Town, then none of the other ones matter. So we have to focus on Crawley Town first, but from there we can expand and hopefully grow to a bigger household name.
You heard what happened in Manchester a couple of days ago, where all the fans have gone ballistic.
Yeah.
So we're shit.
Yeah.
Crab and burning a t-shirt. I don't know exactly what happened. I just saw some WhatsApp videos.
Yeah, they were down like 4-0, 37 minutes into the game against Brentford, actually, and they haven't. I don't think they've won yet, and everyone's just freaking out. And Cristiano Ronaldo wants out, and it's just a mess. Yeah, which actually I think they're American owned. So good luck. Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, okay. So it's been great interviewing you. It's a great interview. I have to ask you this: your background. You're a big guy. Were you that kind of athletic guy when you were in school?
Yeah, I did. So I didn't used to be fat, but I was like 6'4", and I played basketball. Was my favorite sport to play. But where I grew up near Los Angeles, I wasn't still nearly athletic enough to play there. So I never actually played in high school or anything, but that was my favorite sport by far. In high school, I played tennis, though. That was another sport I played quite a bit. And then I got into golf for a while before I started having kids. It's just like a fun sport to play with friends and relax. And yeah, but that's kind of where I'm at now. But yeah, once COVID hit, I stopped like playing basketball, exercise, and like I need to lose some weight since it's got to get back in the mode. But I've been doing all this stuff. I never have time. It's a bad excuse, but anyway, yeah. So that's how I was when I was younger.
Anything you would do different?
About what exactly?
In this whole journey.
Ooh, the whole journey.
Yeah, anything you would do different?
I mean, yes. I think that's a cop-out answer to say no. Nothing I do different because you learn from each mistake. I mean, it's true, but there's a lot of things I think we wish we would have done different. Sorry, I'm pretty good at improvising and answering questions in real time, but this one, I don't want to give a bad answer. My background really is, and it's in psychology, even before sports psychology and mental health, and I still think that's extremely important, and especially in sport where you're like this manly, macho guy, and the stigma of not talking to someone when you need it. I wish I'll say there's two things that come up. I wish I didn't leave that field completely. I kind of feel like because the reason I went into it in the first place is I really wanted to like help people, which is always like the cliche thing. And then you find out there's no money in psychology, and you're like, okay, well, it's like arrogant and selfish, but I'm going to go do something else. So I wish I didn't completely leave. I would say that's one regret. Second is, and I mentioned it, I think earlier, either right before we hit record or maybe it was during, but I hadn't told my family about my background in betting for a long time, and that was stupid. I should have just trusted that they were going to support me and told them earlier and been more open about it. It would have been more fun and just would have had better relationships with them, sooner as opposed to, waiting 5 or 6 years.
Well, my gift is this to you.
Okay.
You are helping people. And you're helping people in the mental psychological way, because you've come with some revolutionary ideas where you've decided to involve the fans.
Sure.
And
okay.
that's allowed them to have that more mental stability.
That's interesting.
And
okay.
more focus.
I appreciate that. That's fair.
And you're helping people throughout, and not just that model that you set will go like wildfire amongst all the other teams. All you have to do is monetize on
we got exactly.
IP, intellectual property and all that.
Yeah.
You've helped people more than sitting down with one person on the sofa across the room. You're helping way more people.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's a
leave,
good way to look at it.
I leave you with that. My last thing before is, where can people find you? If they want to follow you on your social media,
sure.
Check you out in any way, from where can people find you?
I'm mostly on Twitter. I'm on Instagram too, but it's @SportsCheetah, like the animal, Sports Cheetah. Or just Google Preston Johnson and you'll find it too. But yeah, whenever you post this, just link me or tag me on there, and then I can retweet it and tell people about that. I probably will tweet about it when I'm waiting for my flight. Just like most random Uber ride of my life, but I had a good time. It was fun. I like and enjoy talking to people. So
okay, well, thanks a lot for that, and we wish you well.
No problem. Cheers.
We hope that episode enhanced your life. We post an interview every day, as well as vlogging on our social media channels. Don't forget to subscribe to get our latest episode.